the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, and welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today, I am sitting down with a beautiful chronic disease warrior from England. Stacey does not have MS, but Stacey wanted to come on to the podcast to spread awareness about her condition. She was diagnosed with stage 4 rectal cancer 12 years ago, and she was actually given 6 months to live, and she is still here fighting this fight, and she wanted to come on and talk about her journey. Please welcome to the podcast, Stacey. How are you doing today, Stacey?
Not too bad. How are you?
I am doing okay. Stacey, you got diagnosed with cancer 12 years ago, and I know that when we first met and we started talking, you said that you were actually pregnant and you were going through your pregnancy, and they were actually blaming it on prenatal symptoms. And just take us through the journey you had with your diagnosis of cancer and how this happened after you gave birth to your child, and we'll just start from there and we'll go from there, sweetie.
Yeah, so I was kind of working full time, and I was a hairdresser, so I was going mobile and going to the salon. I just thought I was just not handling my pregnancy very well. I was being sick all the time, and I just didn't feel very well. And after that, I still didn't feel very well, like an emergency C-section. And I was going to the doctors and they kept telling me it was postnatal depression. And I was just losing blood. I couldn't really go to the bathroom. But I felt like I was going a lot because it was just kind of blood coming out.
Yeah.
And they were telling me it was postnatal depression. And I'm like, I'm not depressed. I just don't feel very well.
Stacey, let me ask, I'm just going to, I don't want to interrupt you, but to me, and I'm not a doctor, but when you got blood pouring out of you, I don't even understand how that can be prenatal depression. What does depression have to do with blood pouring out of your body? I don't understand that.
I know, I don't really know myself, to be honest. They did have to shut the surgery for a day to figure out kind of what mistakes they had made. And it does turn out that if I'd have been a year older, it would have brought on, it was every symptom of cancer, but just not my age.
Wow.
It's very rare to have rectal cancer at 29. It's very, very rare.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, well, so they finally figured out that it was rectal cancer. What was the treatment? I mean, was it an immediate surgery to fix it, or did they go through radiation, chemo?
Yeah, there was a lot of, so basically I had to have a stoma, and I think that was the most traumatic part of it for me, because obviously there was no awareness of the stoma part back then, like a colostomy bag, and I was just given a bag, and they drew on my tummy and said, right, we'll see you tomorrow. And I was freaking out in the surgery. I didn't want to have it done, jumping off the bed like, I can't do this, and woke up and the operation had gone wrong, and I was extremely poorly, so they had to redo it. And then I had radiotherapy and chemotherapy to shrink the tumor because it was attached to a part of me that they couldn't remove. So luckily it shrunk, and they managed to do the cancer operation, and I ended up having to have a full hysterectomy because it had spread.
Oh my gosh, Stacey, I can't believe so. so this cancer is spreading, and you got, and the fact is, you got a little baby going. I mean, that didn't change. You had a little baby. So
Yeah.
how did that affect your relationship, your husband? I mean, you guys got a little baby in the world now, and mom's got cancer. How did that go with in your journey with your husband?
And not very well. He wasn't very supportive. So we split up. He wasn't very nice to me. Um, and I don't know if it was the responsibility of having our daughter and me having cancer. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
we decided to end things, and I walked away. And I only had one fight, and it was for the cancer, because there was always a 5% chance that it wouldn't throw me off. There was always that 5% chance, and I suppose I'm that 5%.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it wasn't very good. I have a fantastic partner now. She's female, and we've been together kind of on and off for 10 years, but living together for the last few years, and he's been a massive support, because as much as I had all the treatment then, it's actually I was very, very poorly the last couple of years due to the medical irrigation that they gave me. It was actually killing me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually ready to go abroad to get unified, because I didn't want to do it the incorrect way, and I couldn't see a way out. I was in 10 out of 10 pain. My daughter was living with her dad. I couldn't even put a drink to my lips this time last year. I was that weak.
Yeah. And the mental part of our diseases is, I tell everybody that's the hardest part of my condition. It's not the physical part. It's the mental part of it. And I know that I wanted to give up, and I wanted to quit, and I wanted to call it a life, and I wanted to end it. And I went through a very deep depression, and I had to get treatment and get help on that. And I know that you have found a way to cope with your disease, and it took you a long process, and it was a long road. Can you kind of just talk about your journey with your mental health, Stacey, and where you went? I know that you went into some bad places too, but where and how you got out of it. And I think that is the important part about your journey, is that you are just so strong mentally. And but you always weren't that way. You had to find tools and use them to kind of lift you up. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so at the time I used alcohol and drugs to numb myself out of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of pushed my daughter away, because I was scared of loving her anymore and having to say goodbye, and the other way around. So I remember her first birthday, I did this massive party thinking that I would not be here for a second. And it was quite traumatic, that side of it, but I didn't see it. I didn't understand that I'd even really gone through anything. And as the years went on, I seemed to get more poorly. The stoma reversal went wrong. They left me. I was going back and forth to hospital for about 2 years, and they was telling me that there was nothing wrong with me. And it turned out the stoma reversal, there was a part of it that had not worked.
Mm.
So therefore I had to have more surgery. So as much as the cancer part was really, really difficult, it was living with the aftermath, because in my head I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with me? Why do I still feel so terrible?
Right.
And mentally, I just blocked it out and thought I was doing the best for myself, for my daughter. And actually, I was probably doing completely the wrong thing, looking back now.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that there's been a lot of parts of my journey where, I thought it was the right thing to do at the time. And I look back at it now and I'm like, no, you definitely handled that the wrong way. You should have done it better.
Yeah, I know. To be honest, obviously when you're 29, you told you got to have a stoma and you've got 6 months to live. I didn't see no harm with what I was doing. I thought, well, why not have a drink, because I'm not going to be here soon. So it was kind of an escape. And then I was kind of really neglected by the NHS because they never really told me the cancer had gone. I was just continuing to go for tests, just expecting it to come back on every scan. And it was only when I got to 10 years that I said, like, is there still like a 95% chance of this coming back? And they told me, oh no, that's kind of reduced now. You've got to 10 years. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Stacey, I just think I love the fact that, you were given 6 months 12 years ago, and you're still here, and you're still fighting, and you're still positive. And that's what I really admire about your story, is that you've been through the ringer. You've been through the ringer just with life in general. You wanted to bring a beautiful baby into the world, and that's when everything just started spiraling out of control. And I look at you now, and just how and where you're at, and where you're at with your daughter. I know that you actually did not have custody of your daughter for a period of time because your health was poorly, and now you're such a fighter. You actually now have custody of your daughter, and it's just, you are not a quitter. You don't give up, and you didn't quit on relationships. You found love again. And that's the message that I love about you, is that no matter what you get thrown at in life, you just got to figure it out. And it might take a little time to figure it out, but you can do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't not have custody of her. What it was, I wasn't well enough. Like, I was literally on a commode to my bed, and I wasn't really able to communicate because I was on so much medication.
Yeah.
And I thought she'd be better off at her dad's. And I do still think that was the best decision. And sometimes as a parent, I do think you have to make these decisions when you've got an illness. I'd got one fight left for me. I went private. I didn't know if it was going to do anything because I was at the end. I was ready to give up, but I couldn't do it anymore. I was in so much pain. I was living on the toilet doing my irrigation time and time again. It wasn't working. Turns out they should never have gave it me. It was killing me.
Yeah.
So it's like a massive thing. More than the cancer, I would say the aftermath of what it's done, and mentally it kind of tortured me. I felt like a terrible mom, and I was actually made to believe I was a bad mom as well. Because I've always suspected my daughter's got autism, and because of my illness, they wouldn't look into it. And now they've just agreed with me that they suspect it too.
Yeah. And that was another discussion that we had that really hit with me, because I have, my stepdaughter is on the autism spectrum, and I've heard the stories from my wife, and when her daughter was young and 3 years old, 4 years old, and the fight that she had, convincing doctors that her daughter was not right, and to hear your story, that you've been going through that same battle, that just really pulls on my heart, that you're trying to get help for your daughter, and they're blaming you of being a bad parent. Yeah, being a bad parent, and that's crazy.
We ended up having social services involved because this is what I'd like to touch on as well. You know, when you're actually quite vulnerable, and I was really vulnerable. I didn't realize at the time. And I had carers that was coming in, and I thought they were my friends, and I was a bit of a people pleaser. And they actually stole my puppies and ripped me off and trashed my house, did some really terrible things. So, I think that's important as well, because when people are vulnerable, like, I didn't realize people could be that cruel. Looking back now, I've got my right mind.
Yeah.
Like a year ago, I couldn't think straight. I didn't know my own name half the time.
Yeah. That's just, and that's sad that people take advantage of people like that. Stacey, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Can you
Yeah, it's quite sad. It was a couple of carers as well. Like, they borrowed a bit of money off me, kind of, and I didn't mind. And they was just taking advantage looking back. And it's sad, but I just hope that nobody else goes through that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's awful. And that's a sad part of being chronically ill. You have caregivers that come in, and you actually are supposed to be trusting these people, and you have people that do that to you. That's just so sad. I
Yeah,
want
and that's how she managed to steal puppies, because she had got all my paper. Like, she was my carer, so she was dealing with everything
right.
for me. And so, yeah, it was a bit disgusting.
Yeah,
But
that is disgusting.
hopefully, yeah. But you think, well, that's not very nice people, and you think that's okay.
Yeah. So let's talk
I've
about.
got a better mindset now about thinking, like, you know,
Well, that's what I
if
want.
people
That's what I wanted to talk about, Stacey. I wanted to talk about how you flipped your switch, and you found the meditation part. So I know that you went on a well, I don't know, what do you guys call it over there? Not a journey.
I went on a healing private things that I did.
Yeah,
So I was going to see a healer every week.
yeah.
It was massaging, Reiki, and all of, like, lots of different therapies. And I kind of went and stayed, like, near there. I kind of went for 2 days, and then I thought, this is not working. And I actually said, will you do a healing retreat? And he took a chance on me and said, yeah. He knew that I'd not got long left to live, because my whole body was swelling. I'd got water retention. And every time I went to see him, I'd got like more lumped, because even sitting on the toilet was causing me to, my muscle had gone, so it was causing burns and pressures and things like that. So went to the healing retreat in the middle of nowhere, and he taught me a lot of tools. And at the beginning, I couldn't do them, like the meditation. I couldn't stand it for more than 5 minutes, but I continued and continued. And this has gone on for 10 months now. And I feel like I'm finally getting somewhere. I've learned journaling. I've learned patience with myself. And I think until you accept your new life, you're never gonna be okay. And even a week ago, I probably didn't accept my new life, because I wanted to go back to hairdressing. I want to be that 29-year-old hairdresser that I'm never going to be again. And that's a lot to deal with.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I relate to that. Stacey, when I first got diagnosed at 27 years old, 5 years before that, I'm playing on a football field for the University of Michigan, and I'm sitting there going, what happened to that guy? What happened to that guy? And it took me a long time to just accept the fact that, you're never going to be that guy again, but you can still be a great person. I'm still the same person. My body just doesn't do the same thing. You're still that 29-year-old hairdresser, but you're just you're just not working on people's hair now. But I mean, that you're still the same person, but you found ways to express yourself now and deal with all what you're going through. And I did the same thing. I use a lot of meditation. I use a lot of nature. I love being outside. I love being out by the lake where I'm at. I have luckily I'm real close to Lake Erie. And that's the thing that I think that chronic warriors do, is they customize their journey and find things that make them happy, and find things that give them pleasure, and that's what you have to that's what you have to focus on.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't get any pleasure out of it. I'm only just starting to now. I think it's a tool that you have to do. And there was a lot of tools when I went to this retreat. He told me, like, the breathing techniques. I couldn't do them. I was too poorly. And the meditation, I couldn't listen to it for more than 5 minutes, but I continued every day trying and trying and trying. And it's the repetitiveness, like I was nil by mouth, and forcing that one mouthful of food every 3 hours, and then going up to 2 mouthfuls of food, doing one step at a time. Like, I couldn't walk. So then I went to the second healing retreat, and that's where I started walking.
Mm.
And now I can actually walk for 30 minutes, which is amazing.
Yeah. Oh my God. That is just
Uh,
so awesome. And that just shows that the power of the mind, it is just so strong, and you can do so many amazing things if you just put your mind to it and concentrate on what you're trying to accomplish.
yes, and I do think that's like a big, massive part of it. Like just getting your mindset right. Like mine wasn't right. Like just walking that 1 minute before I'd have thought, what was the point? Well, there is a massive point. And I know a lot of chronic people that are suffering. They think, what's the point? And I genuinely kept thinking, what is the point? I'm going to do it. I'll try. And I kept trying and kept trying. And it's only really paid off. I would say the last 3 days I've not felt in that much pain, which is a miracle after 13 years of being in constant pain.
That is awesome. That is awesome that you've never given up. I mean, it's taken 12 years, 13 years, but you're just now starting to figure out how to give yourself some pain relief. And I love that, Stacey. You just never quit. And I think that's what we all have to do. You always got to search. I mean, I'm in pain every day. I'm always searching. Yeah. I'm always searching for things to relieve the pain just a little bit, and that's what we do, and that's what we have to keep on. And I think another important thing is the community that we have. I mean, you're over in England, and I'm sitting here talking to you about your journey, and I think that finding people that are similar in your journey and listening to how they manage their symptoms, I think that is very important to share that, because if you listen to other people, like I'll just use multiple sclerosis, for example. I listen to other people that have this disease, and I've had it 27 years, and I still learn from people that have had this disease from 5 because they handle it a little bit different. And I'm like, you know what? I like that. I might try that. And it might work.
That's really nice to have that kind of community, and that is what I'm hoping to grow, because I feel like there is great MS community, like there is one for Crohn's, but because my condition is quite unique, because it's like I should either be better or not here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
right.
It's a very difficult one for me. So I found it really nice being in the community. That we can connect with each other. I found a lot of other chronic illnesses as well, but I would like to definitely connect with more people, because as much as my partner's amazing and she's really, really understanding and she's taking great care of me, I think until you're actually going through that, the anxiety it causes, the guilt that you feel being a parent, you feel like you're not good enough.
Right.
And I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really common. I know that when I was going through being a new dad, and I was going, and it was 5-10 years down the road, my kids were getting older, and my MS, I would have a bad episode, and I would sit there and think, you're a bad dad. I'm blaming the way that I feel on me, where it's not really my fault. It's my disease. And it took me a long time to realize, don't beat yourself up. You're doing the best that you can. And my kids saw that. My kids, when I talk to them now, they're 22 and 26 years old. And when I talk to them now, and I'm like, hey, did I do things the right way? And they say, Dad, you did the best you could. You did the best you could, and that makes me feel good, because they see that, and your daughter sees you, and she sees that you're fighting this fight, and she understands that Mom's not right. She's not healthy, but she's doing the best that she can. So you got to give yourself a little bit more credit and not beat yourself up that much.
Yeah, she does see that now, but because my ex-husband's a bit of a narcissist, so I was kind of really too poorly to understand what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out recently that she didn't believe that I was poorly. He kept telling her I was lazy, didn't want to go to work. And obviously, because she was young, and I did push her away when I was poorly because I didn't want her to see it. Whenever I was in hospital, she wasn't allowed to come because of her age. So she actually did believe him until she came to a doctor's appointment with me a few years ago, and I got rushed to hospital, and then everything changed.
Wow.
So I think if you have children, it is what I made a lot of mistakes. I tried to hide it because I thought I was protecting her, and actually, children can take on a lot more than you give them credit for. And now I explain things. She's definitely better, and considering she has got definitely some kind of autism, they say it's a little bit of childhood trauma and ADHD.
Yeah.
And she doesn't understand greatly like another 12-year-old would, but she's getting there, and things are getting better between us. And she's understanding, but the more honest I am with her, the more she understands.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important too, Stacey, because I know that you want to be the mom that you want to be, and you're doing everything that you can to be that mom, and just having that child understand that is very important. And I'm glad that you're growing that relationship with your daughter. And it's really important. And the other part of the battle is, I know that she's on the autism spectrum, and I get that. And that's a battle in itself because, she's fighting her own fight, really.
Yeah. And I kind of didn't really understand it because, like I say, nobody agreed with me. So I kind of only ever looked at the symptoms.
Yeah.
And I always just thought, I'm not a very good mom. It's really hard work. And then when I had different carers, they were like, she's really hard work. And I'm like, yeah. And I kind of didn't really do anything about it. But when she was kind of about 6 or 7, I mentioned it to the school a few times. They said, oh, it's because you're not very well and certain things. And actually, they should have listened to me because she has really got every symptom. And now she's with girls, they do hide it. So I do understand that. But now she's kind of 12 and a half and it's coming out thick and fast.
Yeah. Stacey,
her behaviour is not very real, and that's a concern. But obviously, where she was living with her dad, things were very difficult to drink, and I wasn't capable of having her, so she's been through a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely, she has. I mean, and she didn't ask for any of it either. She's another warrior too. Your daughter's just a warrior, just like you, and she's fighting her own battle, and it just sounds like she's doing really, really well, though, and it sounds like you guys are growing this relationship, and I just love talking to you, Stacey, because, like I said, you are a absolute fighter. I watch your TikToks on my phone, and you always put a smile to my face. Especially when you do your little duets with other people. I just your attitude. I loved meeting you. I love talking to you. And I just love talking to people all over the world and just hearing their story. And I think it is just so important to understand. Because people, I've just found with having multiple sclerosis that people just don't understand chronic diseases, whether it's ALS or Parkinson's or POTS or rectal cancer, and people don't understand what it does to lives. How we have to deal with it, how we have to deal with being perceived by other people in society, by our spouses. People just don't understand that. And I don't think that people will understand it unless they hear us. I mean, we have to talk about it, and we just have to start spreading awareness. And I love the fact that you're willing to talk about it, and you're willing to be vulnerable and to talk about intimate things about how you were feeling mentally, and physically. And I appreciate you for that, Stacey.
Oh, no problem. And it's been really a pleasure meeting you as well. And I would love to spread awareness because I feel like there was no support for myself. I'm not going to lie. I did go to where you die, and they were showing me, but because there were groups, they're all in their 60s and 70s, like, no offense, but I'd got a baby and they was kind of crying about their great grandchildren, and I couldn't connect. I had nobody that understood me because there was such an age gap. And I think that that really needs to be broken, because there's support for breast cancer for young people, but for what I've had, there's really not. And what I'm actually left with is quite embarrassing, and a lot of people aren't prepared to talk about it. But I think that's one thing that I'd like to definitely say. Like, I live in anxiety all the time because I feel like I'm going to have an accident because I have got no control. And I think people don't realize that what you are left with sometimes, because I've had a lot of hate saying, well, you should be better by now. Why are you being lazy? Like, and the fact of the matter is, sometimes I am glued to the toilet. Like, the pain is really still real.
Yeah.
I'm left with the chronic indigestion. I've gone for acupuncture every week.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. They kind of think, oh, they've had the treatment, let's get on with life. And that is okay. For a lot of people that have cancer, they are okay afterwards. But sometimes, unfortunately, like myself, I got radiotherapy damage. I had a lot of inside problems.
Right.
And people don't realize the anxiety that causes. And I've been speaking to a lot of people that have got MS, obviously Crohn's, that have got any kind of thing that affects your bowel and bladder. And it is an embarrassing thing to talk about.
It is.
But so many people are going through it and you don't realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, Stacey, because people want to be heard, and they want to help people, and they want to be that person that, like, hey, don't worry, you're going to be okay. You just got to, just handle it, the mental part of it. And the only way that we're going to do that is by talking about it, and
yeah.
Get rid of the stigmas. Get rid of the stigmas that, okay, that person's got a chronic disease, so we're not going to talk to them because, they're different.
I lost a lot of friends. I'm not going to lie. I lost a lot of friends, and then I made a lot of wrong friends because I was lonely and it just in a mess, really. And I wanted friends for my daughter, and I wasn't very well. And I think people, you lose a lot of friends, but in the end, I pushed everyone away. I was that poorly, and I thought, right, anybody that cares will let me have this time to get better, and I will then reconnect with them. And the people that won't are not worth my time and energy, because it does make you a bit of a people pleaser being poorly sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that anymore. And that's the tools I've learned from, obviously, getting better and handling things better, like going out in nature. That's really important. And the anxiety it still causes, it's ridiculous, but it's doing it every day, trying every single day, no matter how hard it is. Like, I find it really difficult going out in the car because there's not a toilet.
Right.
But I do it every single day just because it's the only way to move forward.
Yeah, you got to take yourself outside the box, and I do the same thing, Stacey. With my MS, a lot of people, they have the bowel issues and they have the bladder issues, and I do, but I can't let that stop me. I'm still going to go out and do the things that I want to do. But I prepare myself the best that I can too. I make sure that, I know where the bathrooms are. If I'm going somewhere, I'm like, okay, well, I gotta think this out. I gotta make sure that if we're going to a restaurant, if the bathroom's in this corner, then I want to be seated somewhere close to it so that I can get to it. I mean, that's the part that people don't understand, that we have to think about that. And that's the anxiety part. But, I
think it's a mental, like, everyday things that you have to think about that people don't realize. Oh my gosh, is there going to be a toilet? Oh my gosh, is somebody going to be in there?
Yeah.
Will I be able to get to this? Am I going to start feeling poorly while I'm out? And it's such a big thing that people just don't realize. Like, I've had to cancel many plans, and that's how I lost friends, but I just wasn't well enough.
Right.
And the anxiety it causes to try and go out when you don't know where the bathrooms are and you don't know where this is. And I couldn't eat at the time anyway. I was being sick 100 times a day. So I didn't want to go out or meet up with people. And I just think the mental thing that it takes just to go to the shops around the corner is like so hard. And I probably don't handle it very well yet, but I'm getting there.
You're doing awesome, Stacey. Like I said, since I have met you and I've talked to you a few times, and just from what I have learned about where you've come from and where you're at today, I think you're a warrior. I think you're a badass, and I would, someday love to meet you, just like I would love to meet everybody that I've talked to over in your part of the area in England and Northern Ireland and everywhere. Everybody that I have met, we all have one thing in common. We're all good people. I mean, that's for sure. Everybody that I've talked to and recorded an episode with, we're all good people, and we all want to be understood, and we all wanted to be, and we all want to be treated normal, like normal human beings, and not like third class citizens. And it's the same thing, whether you're in the United States or whether you're in the UK or Northern Ireland or Holland or Norway, or it doesn't matter. We all just want to be treated normal.
Yes, but with a bit of understanding. I just feel like I've been very misunderstood over the years.
Yep.
And I actually ended up pushing everyone away, and it was the best thing I've ever done for myself. And I would recommend anybody to do it if they are struggling, because sometimes when you can't think straight, you need that space to be able to get better, or you're never going to get better.
Yeah. Absolutely, Stacey. Stacey, I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast to share your journey. I absolutely love talking to you. And if you ever want to come on again and give me an update on how you are doing, we could talk about your daughter with her autism diagnosis.
Yes, this would be.
Yeah.
That would be great, because I feel like I'm only just getting better, if that makes sense. Like, it was a long journey. This last 10 months has been horrendous. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm getting there, and I'm trying, and that's the only thing I would ever recommend to anyone. And reach out, if you're struggling. There are so many support groups now that wasn't available back in the day. So I would definitely. And one thing that I would really like to mention before I go, please make sure you advocate for yourself, because if I hadn't advocated for myself, I would have died before finding out I'd got cancer.
Yeah.
And also the irrigation that I kind of knew wasn't doing what it should be doing, but I was medicated up. I was on hundreds of mils of morphine.
Yeah.
And it was actually killing me. Looking back now, it was stupid what I was doing, but I knew no better.
Yeah.
And I feel like people really need to look at the holistic side as well. And I've gone down the holistic side since day one. So maybe that's why I'm still here. But I did everything, like cannabis oil. I did Manuka honey, anything and everything that was recommended. I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we got to do. We try whatever we can, whether it is the big pharma meds or whether it is holistic. You try anything you can to help you manage whatever you're trying to manage, and that's what I tell people. There's no one way. There's no one way to fight any disease. You got to figure it out. You gotta experiment, and find your way of managing your disease.
Yeah, and coping.
Yeah. All right, Stacey, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you just helping to spread awareness about what it is like living life after a diagnosis like rectal cancer. I can't imagine the battle that you are fighting, and you are just a warrior, and I know that you are going to continue to fight on, and you're going to be an awesome mom, and I really want to thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
No problem. All right, this is the MS Michigan Man. I'm going to get going. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64, also on TikTok, MS Michigan Man 64, and you could find me on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Until the next episode, this is MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.